Welcome to the last module for the Behavior Mastery Challenge. In this module, we are going to help ourselves to understand our authority. Now, every other module that we have dealt with, they are very important. There is no module in the Behavior Mastery Challenge that is not important. However, this could stand out as the most important module because this is where we deal with the replacement therapy. This is where we are trained on how to replace our habits, our bad habits, our negative habits, our unprofitable habits. This is the module where we are shown, held by the hands, on how to replace those addictive behavioral tendencies. But there's a reason why we couldn't just come straight to this point. I could have as well started from this point or just focused on this point and ended the entire, training. But the reasons are simple. It's possible to take you to this model, show you how to replace behaviors or addictions and whatever your actions or whatever lifestyle it is that you're dealing with. But the key thing is that when you successfully replace them, the probability that you will fall back into them, sometimes even in worse dimensions, is very likely. It's like, if you are familiar with the pages of the scripture, it talks about you come into a strong man's house, you bind him, you cast him out, and he leaves. But how he left, he doesn't find any other place that is as comfortable for him. And so after going all over the place and not finding where to pitch, he comes back to, the place from where he has been cast out. But when he comes back, even though it is empty, even though it is clean and well kept, but it is empty. Therefore, he comes back and occupies the place. But this time he comes back with 7 more devils that are worse than him, which makes the person's condition even worse off than it was before those devils were cast out. So it becomes counterproductive that you cast out these spirits, for example, without putting in place, first of all, systems and structures that can help to sustain the victory, that can help to preserve that. And that's why this is where the whole idea of mastery comes to play. This entire project is designed to equip you with mastery. Mastery means that no matter what happens, you've come to the understanding of how these things work. Therefore, you can walk back into victory 1,000 times. Therefore, you can sustain victory. You can sustain, your capacity to stay free from enslavement, from behavioral imprisonment, from lifestyles and attitudes that before now overwhelmed, overcome, and subdued you. And so it is the reason why we have had to deal with all that we've dealt with. It was important in Module 1 that you understood the human mind and how it worked. It was important in Module 2 that you understood what the reasons are, your why you want to be free. It was important in Module 3 that you understood the human emotion and how it works, even in Module 4. It was important in Module 5 that you understood your worth, even in Module 6. And in Module 7, we are going to understand the simplicity of your authority and how understanding that authority and using it can put you in command. Don't forget, all through the models so far, we've been able to identify those things that continue to trigger, your addiction. So it's not enough that we have found out that you got an addiction that you're battling with, and then we just jump straight to Module 7 and begin to talk about replacing those addictions. Whereas these addictions are triggered by certain factors. It becomes important that you identify, you recognize the factors that trigger those addictions, then you monitor them, you avoid them, you eliminate them, you replace them. Otherwise, even when you apply the principles of Module 7 and break free from those lifestyles, if you are not observant, if you don't take note of your triggers and put them where they belong, deflate them, displace them, disarm them, then as long as you continue to expose yourself to those triggers, then they will continue to trigger and re-trigger your addictions and make you look like you're going round in circles. It is the reason why you don't want to mess with any of the models that we've attended to and all the prescriptions and specifications that have been recommended to you. What your non-negotiables are, the people, places, and things that you must get rid of in your circle, taking, looking back in retrospect of how you got here and making sure that you have put yourself in a position where you can always deal with it, identifying your temporary rewards and being able to look for better alternatives to replace those rewards. And then we've been able to identify what our routine responses are every time we are triggered, those things that are always our first reactions. We've also been able to identify them, because in this model the question will now be, how do we replace those routine responses with alternate and productive and profitable responses that put us in a place of victory, that add value to our lives. And of course, in talking about our worth, we've been able to identify our new identity, and we're operating from that point of view. It is on the basis of all this that we have come to model number 7. And in model number 7, we want to focus on the replacement therapy. And to begin with, based on the fact that in the previous model, we have been able to establish that we are the children of God, that we have the nature of God, and that if we have the nature of God, we must come to terms with the fact that we are God's. If we are product of the seed of God, then we have the nature of God, then we have that DNA of a God. This is important. This is the much we've been able to conclude, to arrive at, to agree upon. And so as we go into this model, we will stand on that pedestal to position ourselves, to use our authority, recognize, understand our authority as products of a God, which means we are lesser gods, and then we want to engage the power that is associated with a God or with a God kid. Stay with me, and I'll be right back.